antagonists against the mitzvah of circumcision is that they believe very strongly in the evolutionary process and evolution. And I'm not going to go ahead and debate evolution in the standard way because, frankly, I'm not a biologist and I don't know enough about genetics to really make a reasonable set of arguments. I do know a little bit about them, but not enough to really argue effectively. But I will say this to my friends out there who deny the obligation to circumcise Jewish babies at 8 days old by virtue of the fact that they argue for what they call biblical criticism and evolution. Biblical criticism has been effectively found to be wanting. They're a bunch of ignoramuses who think they know how to study Torah, but they really don't. They know things about texts. They've made their questions. Questions often have answers. And some of the questions have remarkable answers. And even though there are remarkable answers, the critics still say the same garbage. Newsweek ran a story about the claims, the inappropriate claims of the Jews to the land of Israel based upon their conquest of the land, and quoted the biblical critics who criticized the story of Jericho. Biblical critics said Jericho could not have been conquered by Joshua because the artifacts are too old, they're 200 years too old. And then about 11, 12 years ago they discovered a whole layer of the city of Jericho corresponding to the time of Joshua. The walls appeared to have collapsed in an earthquake, and the jars, hermetically sealed jars, were of fresh grain, indicating a spring capture, which is exactly what the Bible says in the book of Joshua. But the Newsweek people chose to ignore this because Bible critics consider their questions as if they were factual. A question is not a fact. The fact you've got a question on the Bible means just you got a question on the Bible. It doesn't mean you know exactly what happened. Second thing regarding evolution. I, as a science student many years ago, never bought into the concept of evolution because evolution is based on one principle. And that principle, besides adaptation and survival of the fittest, which incidentally a couple of weeks ago ran in the internet, that scientists discovered, to their shock and dismay, that survival of the fittest is not true. That when you have several competing species, it's usually the non-fittest that survives and the fittest that don't, because they probably kill each other. But that's a different story. But adaptation does not explain the diversity of the number of creatures that we have in this world or the fossils, and they have to come up with what is called spontaneous mutation, mutations that come suddenly as a result of certain outside influences such as radiation or cosmic ray bombardment. I never bought into this for the following reason. Cosmic rays bombardment are constant. There's always cosmic rays coming out there. There are times when there's more solar rays or gamma rays coming from the sun. There are times when there are more certain pulses that come from various planets or stars or galaxies out there. But things happen over the course of a long period of time. And these are random. Random means there's not a program. They're not pre-planned. First of all, the miracle of genetic mutation would have had to have occurred twice in one area, because you need, for the most part, a male and a female. So you'd have to have lightning strike twice around the same time, at least within the same time period, so that the two adults could have relations and create an offspring that was mutually acceptable to them. besides all of that, you have to understand that these cosmic rays bombardment are happening all over the world at different times in different places. And so, if you're going to postulate that men appeared in different places in the globe, or even if you're going to postulate that there was only one or two, there's a couple, one woman and one man that appeared somewhere in deep Africa at one particular point, 300,000 years ago, or whatever, the possibility and the probability exists that similar mutative forces were happening at different other times, 100,000 years, 50,000 years, 150,000 years, 200,000 years down the line. Other mutative processes should have been happening. And since apes and monkeys are found in many places all over the world, in many places where no human being exists or has large numbers of, it would therefore follow, and it would have to be, because if it's random, it would have to be, that somewhere there were apes becoming people. The same thing is true with other transitory, transition type of entities. But you don't find that anywhere in the world. You don't find a single lizard developing feathers. And you don't find a gorilla becoming upright and developing a language and becoming a man anywhere in the world. And you don't have any of those in between. And I know they say that they do, but there aren't any. If they did, they would be more well-known, more popular. Fact is, it's not there. It's not there anywhere in the world. It means it never happened. Never happened in the first place. How can I be so sure it never happened in the first place? It gets back to the old, I think it's Huxley was the one who had the famous debate defending Darwin. And Huxley said, if you have 50 monkeys on 50 typewriters, continue on for billions of years, you wind up with Shakespeare. And anybody doing this simple mathematics of the monkeys typing, the odds against that are so staggering, it is mathematically impossible for the monkeys to have ever, within 20 billion years, to have ever written not just a song, but a sentence. Certainly not Shakespeare's plays. And therefore, genetics could not be randomly put together. It doesn't happen. The odds and the difficulty for it happening by itself are just too staggering. Mathematically impossible. These are not my words. These are the words of Professor Avraham Michal Hassefer, who examined millions of mutations, millions of them, and not one species was created by them. And it was up to him to discover what would the odds be. And he said, it's impossible. It's a mathematical impossibility. And to this day, it's a mathematics. It's the amount of chances necessary are far more difficult to arrange DNA than it is any one of Shakespeare's plays, or all of them put together. It would never happen. And therefore, guys, I never believed in evolution. I don't believe in evolution, nor